When you see travel bloggers traveling full-time for months, even years, have you ever wondered how much does that cost? Well, in this series, we're going to open up our spreadsheets and show you exactly how much traveling through Europe costs. Now, during our first month, we spent 2 weeks in Slovenia and 2 weeks in Croatia. So in this video, we'll show you a comparison of how much each cost and be able to tell you which one was most expensive to visit. We'll also show you where we made mistakes and where we spent too much money. So be sure to stay to the end as we sum up how to keep your costs low when traveling long term, all in this episode of Lucas World Travel.
So welcome back to the channel. I'm Kendra Lucas and
I'm David Lucas.
And we're Lucas World Travel. Now, we've been living abroad for a full 2 years now. We wound up getting stranded in Thailand due to the pandemic and spent a year and a half there. Now, we're back to traveling full-time, country hopping around Europe. But boy, what a big difference in living in Thailand for months at a time versus flying, traveling, staying in short-term rentals in Europe. When we were living in Thailand, we got our expenses as low as $1,500 a month. But now that we're back to full-time traveling, our expenses are getting much higher, so we wanted to share with you what that looks like. So if real full-time travel budgets is something that interests you, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell. This is just the first video of this series of our month one budget, but you'll see how our travel budget changes as we change countries. So make sure you subscribe to see all of our travel budgeting months coming soon. Now, for consistency, I've converted all of the currencies into US dollars because it would have been too much to include euros and kuna and US dollars all on the same slides. So everything has already been converted to dollars for this video. So let's go ahead and look at our first month. Now, naturally, as you can imagine, our biggest expense were our flights from the US to Slovenia. And boy, were they costly.
One-way flights per person were $817. Now, this is what happens when you book a flight at the last minute and you don't want to be flexible. Our issue at the time was we had to fly all the way back to the United States to get vaccinated. And it was so expensive being there for us, we wanted to get out of the United States as soon as possible. We were willing to bite the bullet on the cost and expense for this trip because we knew we weren't going to be flying again for a while. So this was our one-time extreme expense.
Next up is accommodations. So for our first month, our accommodation expenses came to $1,821. Now, Slovenia wound up being much more expensive than Croatia in terms of accommodations. We spent about $1,039 on accommodations in Slovenia, whereas we only spent $781 on accommodations in Croatia, and we stayed about 2 weeks in each country. Our next big expense was a car rental, and we spent $657 on the car rental. Most of that went to getting full coverage insurance, which in retrospect probably didn't need the full coverage, but it just gave me peace of mind, so we went with the full coverage that time. Additional fees include $85 for fuel for the week and $47 for parking, for a grand total of $789 for the car rental altogether. Now, while renting the car was very convenient and helped us get to some locations that we wouldn't be able to access by public transportation, when I look back at the expense, I still probably feel like we wasted money on the car rental. Honestly, I think we would have been just as content seeing a bit less and saving the money.
So we spent 1 week with the car rental, and then we had 3 additional weeks. So 3 additional weeks of public transportation comes to $239.03. When you compare 1 week of car rental to 3 weeks of public transportation, you have a hand to forehead moment What was I thinking?
For real though.
Plus, we really enjoy sitting back and relaxing and letting people drive for us. Mm-hmm. It's so much more relaxing letting someone else do the driving.
Our next big expense was restaurants. And if you don't know, we like to eat out. We eat out way too much. Now, we did eat in breakfast every day, so at least we were fixing our own breakfast. But we eat out every day for lunch. And in Slovenia, we ate out quite a few dinners as well because we were traveling so fast, just didn't make time to cook. So total for restaurants for the first month, we spent a whopping $1,068. And when I look at that final number, I'm like, this again. Why did we eat so much? But to break it down country-wise, in Slovenia, we spent $681. So restaurant prices ranged from as low as $25 to $56 for two people having a meal. So average cost for eating out in Slovenia was about $38 for two people. In Croatia, we spent around $368 for restaurants and bars. And those prices range from $20 to $44 for two people eating at a restaurant. So the average cost was about $24 per meal for two people. So again, you can see how Croatia was a lot more affordable than our time in Slovenia. And that's part of the reason why we were trying to travel through Slovenia so quickly, although it's hard to say whether that really saved us money because by traveling fast, we were eating out more and just all together, it sends those expenses up. And for groceries like breakfast and for the few dinners we made at our accommodation, that total came to $226, which I'm very happy with. I think that's a reasonable monthly grocery budget.
For activities and attractions, we spent $599.45. We're both happy with that number because as we're traveling, one of the most important things to us is seeing all the museums, the churches, and all the attractions that they have to offer. We want to go check those out. It enriches our experience. We typically won't skimp on those types of expenses, but we did find that there were some things that we spent our money on that we wish we had our money back. Give my money back. So one of those things was the Vogel cable cars. And I'm not calling them out specifically or anything like that, but I am saying that we spent $57 for the both of us on the Vogel cable cars, and it was just all right.
It wasn't a $57 worth experience. So.
Yeah. So some of those attractions will get you and they don't really give much back to you. And then you look back and you say, oh, but that's part of it also too. You're going to make some mistakes, and that was one of ours. So now we look at the cable cars differently. We look at them and say, will that be a nice attraction, or will we be bored and then we'll spend too much money? So that's something we have to look at.
So for travel medical insurance, we wound up spending $151 for both of us. And this is just so we have some peace of mind in case there's an unexpected illness, an unexpected travel happening, that we have a little bit of insurance that can help reimburse us for any unexpected costs like that. And we use Safety Wing. We got the link for that in the description box below. And we find that it's really easy to enroll, renew, and very affordable. Fees are based on your age. So if you're younger than us, your fees will be lower. And if you're older than us, your fees will be higher. But it's very clear cut how they have everything set up, and we really like that about them. And they even cover COVID-related illness. So during the pandemic, it just gives you peace of mind to know that if you get ill for any reason, that they got your back. And for international phone coverage, we use Google Fi, and that comes to $146 for the both of us, which we know is a little bit pricey, but I like to be able to land in a country and have data instantaneously instead of having to use Wi-Fi or having to search for a SIM card. So this convenience makes it super easy to country hop, to use our GPS the moment we land, so we're able to navigate where we need to go very easily. So I think it's worth it, and that's why we will continue to have it as we travel. So the grand total is $6,681.24.
Wow. All the sparklies. Okay. Now, I know that number sounds outrageous, but I just want to say this. Those trips to and from America are very, very expensive. We don't have that moving forward. So I know that number is shocking. It sounds like Kendra and I are big ballers. You know, we're shot callers now. You know, we're like Puff Daddy and Jay-Z. No, we're not. We like to live on a budget. We like to do things frugally, but at the same time, we're traveling. So at the same time, you know, but we want to be open with you and share this with you as far as the expense of how things cost. Now, moving from country to country is very different, and we're going to share some more about that.
So our tips for saving money as you travel include booking your flights and accommodations as far in advance as you can. And this is because the first seats on the plane are the cheapest. And as they have less seats, they charge more and more for those seats. So we've fallen into the pattern of having to pay much more for the last 2 or 3 seats on a plane as opposed for paying just a little for the first few seats on a plane. Same for accommodations. If you book in advance, you get a better selection. I find that when I'm trying to book last minute, it's kind of slim pickings and I'm getting the worst accommodations of the bunch instead of the best.
And sometimes for even higher price.
Yeah. Tip number 2, travel as slow as possible. Now, if you're traveling on vacation, we know this is impossible. But if you're traveling for months at a time, try to spend at least 7 days in a location. That will save you a lot on food and accommodations. It'll save you on accommodations because you get a little bit of a discount booking weekly than you do just booking daily, and you get an even bigger discount if you book monthly. So if that's an option for you as well, definitely book monthly.
So that tip is going to save a lot of you who are working remotely and traveling around right now. Mm-hmm. That's going to be something that's really you want to take advantage of.
And also, it feels more comfortable to spend a week in a place than to spend just 3 or 4 days in a place. When we were traveling quickly through Slovenia, it was quite exhausting. We spent 4 days sewing place and then 2 days and 2 days. And that was just way too fast. We were exhausted. And by the time we got to Croatia, we needed just a few days to sit in the accommodation and recover. So in order to avoid that little travel fatigue, try to travel a bit slower.
Lesson learned.
Mm-hmm.
So the other tip is, carefully think about it if you really want to rent a car. One of the things that we learned was just that we would much rather have someone do the driving for us. We can relax, we can do work if we use public transportation. Plus, public transportation is already there. It's available. It's sometimes cheaper. And if it's not, and you have a spur of the moment, you got to get someplace, take a cab. But in other situations, renting a car for the most part, to us, turned out to be a bad idea.
It's a resource that we plan on using again when it makes sense, but a lot of times it just doesn't make sense to rent a car. Tip number 4, try to travel through less expensive countries where your money will go further. You saw the big difference between Slovenia and Croatia. So if you can spend more time in Croatia and less in Slovenia, that's going to help your budget go a lot further.
So also consider traveling off season. I know quite a few of you do because I've run into quite a few of you. But anyway, try traveling off season. Your accommodations and everything, generally speaking, get lower in cost. You're going to spend less money. There's less crowds. There's less lines. you can get those Instagram photos you want. Okay? Because there's a lot of people that are not standing in the way. For example, one of the cities we stayed in, those rooms and accommodations can get over $100 a night. But when you buy them off season, they're significantly lower than that. And you can stay in much nicer places for that amount of money. So those are things to consider.
Now, for our second month of travel, we spend 3 weeks in Croatia and 1 week in Bosnia-Herzegovina. So make sure you like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can follow along and see what our travel budget for our second month was like. And fortunately for us, the expenses in our second month go down considerably. So make sure you subscribe so you can see just how low the expenses go. Also, in the comments below, let us know what type of traveler are you? Do you like to keep a very low budget? What are your tips for saving money while you travel?
And if you really want to help us out and help us grow our channel, be sure to share our video with at least one friend. We really appreciate it, and it goes a long way.
And if you want to see how low we got our budget living in Thailand, check out that video right over here. That's our journey though, so good luck in planning yours. See you next time. Bye, guys.
So be okay. Okay.